Photograph, but in this case, it's sort of a generic photograph. It's the photograph that one sees in the newspaper. You remember the newspaper? Ever since I was a child, I saw this picture, whether it be in Dresden or in Beirut or wherever. It's the same photograph, basically. And the poem is called Building with Its Face Blown Off. How suddenly private is revealed in a bombed-out city. How the blue and white striped wallpaper of a second-story bedroom is now exposed to the lightly falling snow, as if the room had answered the explosion, wearing only its striped pajamas. Some neighbors and soldiers poke around in the rubble below and stare up at the hanging staircase, the portrait of the grandfather, a door dangling from a single hinge. And the bathroom looks almost embarrassed by its uncovered ochre walls, the twisted mess of its plumbing, the sink sinking to its knees, the ripped shower curtain, the torn goldfish trailing bubbles. It's like a dollhouse view, as if a child on its knees could reach in and pick up the bureau, straighten the picture. Or it might be a room on a stage in a theater, in a play with no characters, no dialogue or audience, no beginning, middle, and end, just the broken furniture in the street, a shoe among the cinder blocks, a light snow still falling on a distant steeple, and people crossing a bridge that still stands. And beyond that, crows in a tree, a statue of a leader on a horse, and clouds that could be smoke. And even farther on, in another country, far away, in a blanket under a shade tree, a man pouring wine into 2 glasses, and a woman sliding out the wooden pegs of a wicker hamper filled with bread, cheese, and several kinds of olives. So the intention at the end there was just to kind of lift the camera of the poem, so to speak, away from this war-torn city into a country at peace, which would have enjoy the liberties and the civil tranquility to have a little picnic like that. And after, interesting to me at least, after a reading, someone came up and said, I just love at the end of that poem how you used several kinds of olives, because that's the olive branch is the symbol, of peace. And I said, yeah, right. Sure is. It's the last thing in my mind. Perfectly willing to take extra credit. So happy Mother's Day. Here's a Mother's Day poem. If you're a mother or if you've had a mother, a poem called The Lanyard, which I try to use a little thing to talk about something larger. Someone said, you know what free writing is when you're sometimes in class, you just write kind of without, you can't stop writing, you write for 10 minutes without. But they say that if you continue to write, not just for 10 minutes, but for hours, you would eventually get to the topic of your mother, and then you would not be able to change the subject. Indefinitely, or eternally, so The Lanyard. I start the poem with how the poem got going in my head. The Lanyard. The other day, as I was ricocheting slowly off the pale blue walls of this room, bouncing from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one more suddenly into the past. A past where I sat out at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift from my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard, or wear one if that's what you did with them, but that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand, again and again, until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted teaspoons of medicine to my lips, set cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim, and I in turn presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing and a good education, and here is your lanyard, everybody, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones, and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made of Kim. And here I wish to say to her now is a smaller gift, not the archaic truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-tone lanyard from my hands, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even.